How do you feel about watching this back and looking at the way that Sophie's treated it?
First, thank you for coming. I have to be honest, every time that there's the intimacy being shown, I whether don't stay in the room or hide myself. So I guess I'm still shy about it. For the rest of the documentary, I think it was for me very important to actually go through and just experience it and experience the emotions as well and share it. I'm guessing I was missing some friends, so of course. I don't know. It felt good at the moment. It still feels good to actually been done it.
So who initiated this project? Like, how did it come about? Did you approach Sophie, the director, or were you approached?
Well, Sophie is a friend of mine. She was at that moment, let's say, a second layer of friends. So she didn't know me as much as other friends that were close to her. Couple of months after, I just felt that I needed to share the baby, and I went to see Sophie and told her that I had 6 months of writing archives that I was happily handing over to Sophie, and she could do whatever she thought it would be worth doing. Carte blanche, because I felt that was the only way that I could actually manage to move forward as well. So I went to see her. She took some weeks to go through the reading and came back to me because she didn't know if it was going to be a fiction movie or actually a documentary movie. Because you can understand that the format is very particular. There was nothing to shoot. It's an online story. So, of course, it was a difficult challenge for a director. But I think she really did a great job with that. So she came back to me and said, you know what, I think the best solution would be actually that we go on a journey together and we meet the key people that you encountered online and see what they have to say.
I mean, it is intimate. Like, giving somebody all of your online... I mean, I know that I have had online conversation and I would be giving those to anybody, you know, and to give somebody the kind of story of this, I'm just kind of like, it's just so like intense. And like, I think, what is your view now on relationships and love? And when you meet people, like, what is going through your mind?
That after a second email, you meet the person. That I understand. Well, you know, I don't think there's anything different the way I see it. I think in a relationship you have to still trust the other person, and you know, and emotions are pretty hard to control as well. So I think it's hard to stop yourself of engaging with someone you actually like. But maybe now the use of the internet, in my case, is not anymore in use for a relationship matter, because I pretty understood well. And now it's also, I understood also it's a chemistry thing, you know, and it was an intellectual also chemistry. Might as well have it in life.
So you had this chemistry, and then you find out that this person isn't who you thought you were. What does that say about that chemistry?
I guess I fantasized about it a lot. Yeah, I projected it. Yeah, for sure.
Do you think that you maybe... Because, you know, when you looked back on the story, like one of the activists was talking about looking through the blog, Amina's blog, and being like, wait, this is fiction. Mm-hmm. When you looked back, did you see fiction?
Well, first didn't go through my writing, so I wouldn't say about the writing. But I had conversations with people after that were saying, yeah, well, we knew from the beginning it was fiction. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, good. But there's a lot of people, including great professionals, that didn't think it was fiction. So I guess we were all trapped in that kind of Westerner belief of what is Middle East and how we communicate from there. And I understood also that I had my own weaknesses toward this, which I addressed after. But it was a real, I just went for it, and this is how it ended up.
I mean, to me, it seems like the levels of implausibility in the story are so epic that it's almost like you do believe it. You know what I mean? Like when they were talking about the fact that the other woman who ran Les Get Real was also a man and not a lesbian, and had like what 5 PhDs and like all of this and several children, and had also meant to travel the world and spoke all. It's kind of like when we're impressed by people, we kind of think, oh, that must be real. You know, that must be real. Like, is that kind of how you found yourself in your relationship with Amina? You're like, oh, because they've been raided, that must be real.
Well, you know, you have to understand that I had some doubts during the 6 months, but when The Guardian actually conducted that interview, I was like, okay, it's The Guardian, of course. So if they actually met Amina, well, why should I keep on doubting? And they pretty much gave, for me, a stamp of approval. And I just kept on believing in her because a big institution such as The Guardian were vouching for her, and such as the other people involved. They certainly didn't do the right thing.
And that certainly leads to the next question, which is now, how do you view the media?
Well, more carefully, that's for sure. You know, I before believing anything, I just triple check. I just don't read the same source. But you know, it's the way we consume information as well. It's the breaking news that it's more consumable for institutions now, and you have less and less in-depth news reportage, which is a shame because this is probably where we would actually get the better sense of what's going on. So, you know, I think it's also I say that quite often, but Andy Carving, who is also doing some teaching at Columbia Journalism, was telling me that it's now a really good case study for future journalists that didn't do their proper homeworks because of lack of, and also performance. There's a concept of time that now has really changed in the news industry. Just releasing the news before someone else is much more important than actually double checking. Let me remember. I think it was an app on Facebook. I don't remember the app though. And strangely, well, now I think strangely, strangely enough, you know, it was random people connecting through interest or something like this. And normally you have the names that are hidden. But on her profile pic, there was the name. So I was like, oh, this is weird. And that made me even more curious. So it started on Facebook. Yeah. First, I think it's a combination of both. It's my own weaknesses as my own weaknesses in relationships and patterns that also I had to understand better, and also linking patterns to what type of person I was looking for, which is, you were saying, heroic. I needed to have full admiration of the person, someone that was standing by, you know, that could stand by or stand up for her rights and just believe in something and make herself heard. So for me, it was one-on-one égale plus, égale two, you know, it made sense. And this is why it was easy to believe, I have to say. This is why I went through also. And concerning Tom, am I angry? Well, probably I was before. Just, let's say, sad for him. That's the only thing I could say, because I don't think he understood the impacts of his actions on different people. And you know, we spent 2.5 hours talking. There's only a few pieces here, and I think it was a really good choice Sophie did in the editing, because we didn't want to put you in a situation where you already had an opinion of him by us telling you how he was. So I think that gives you a little heads up on how you think he is. And you know, he's weird. Like, he's really, till the end, you know, you have to understand it's not even there. And some people come to see me say, like, you're pretty cool. Yes, I'm cool because I had a mission. It was really an objective, which is shooting and having my questions out there. But I didn't want to give him more than I already given. You know, he already used as much as I could handle. And at the end, he still didn't understand. He even told me, oh, maybe we could be Facebook friends. And I was like, yeah, well, I think you're pushing a little further here, a little too far. So, you know, I don't think we should give him more space.
I know. I I think you're right about Tom McMaster's, but I also wonder about his wife, because the only real image of his wife in that film is of her sitting in the back, just looking completely perplexed.
For the little story, when we were in Istanbul, so you understood we surprised him, and at some point he was texting during the interview, and I'm like, "Who are you texting?" Like, I'm texting Brita. I'm like, "Okay, sure. Where is she?" "Well, she's probably feeding the cat in Istanbul." I'm like, "Okay." Anyways, 2 hours later, Sophie and myself, are leaving the room, going back up, and Sophie just stops and she looks at me. She's like, okay, can you just move a little further up and tell me if I'm not mistaken, but I think Brita is waiting outside outside the university. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And it was her, but she was not feeding cats, you know? So at some point I was wondering if he actually told her that we were there and she was coming over. So what we did was we didn't go out because I told Sophie, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't want to talk to her. I don't want to face her. I have no interest. So we hid and we went out through through the parking lot and escaped from the university on the other side because I was like, this is so f***ed up. There's something off here. So I don't know to what extent. I have no idea. I, it's still we still have doubts, but I can't express them more than just saying I don't know. Is it over? I think it's just a new beginning, I would say. That was very important for me, and this is why we did it also. It was to get some closure. And I think the first, I gained closure when we actually shared it a couple of months ago in Sundance by just like, okay, now it's not mine anymore, it's others. And I feel less required to actually support it, even if I'm very happy to. But now it's... I guess I understood better who I was also. So yes, I got closure. I did because I just got back control of the story and how we wanted to make it happen. And I think Sophie and myself did, Sophie even more because she's a director, did a crazy, amazing job by telling the story how I experienced it, and it worked well.